Hello, guys. Thanks for tuning in to today's show. For those of you who don't know us, my name is Chris Bradley, and I'm the founder at HokuBook. And my partner over here is Anthony Schneider, and he's the Grand Master Sourcer at HokuBook. We're the OGs, been around from the very beginning. So we kind of want to talk to you about our product offering today, but we'll step back for those of you who aren't familiar with us and kind of tell you where we came from. About 15 years ago, we started seeing trends in the market where, the pricing on textbooks in the college store and the pricing on Amazon, there started to be a gap that formed between those. And that gap started to widen and widen on the pricing. And so that's where we started seeing issues where students would come into the store and say, oh, well, I can get this book for so and such or such price on Amazon. Why is it $30 more in the store? And so we saw that as an opportunity back about 15 years ago, rather than, oh, Amazon's taken over. We said, let's flip this around and let Amazon, and not only Amazon, but all these various other marketplaces become our partner. And let's come up with a solution that allows stores to pull that inventory in and provide better price points. So really, one of the things that we've seen are challenges that stores face when they try and do this on their own, or if they're using some of the other partners that are out there. And I'll kind of toss a question at you, Anthony, since you're the guru when it comes to everything textbook sourcing. So what are some of the challenges that you're seeing stores face in today's environment?
Yeah, sure, Chris. It's a daunting task, when you're looking at your list, whether it's hundreds or it's thousands of items, and you're trying to decide, okay, I want to try and get the most bang for my buck. Let me jump on in the marketplace and try and source some used inventory. One of the obvious things that pops up in my mind is just the time-consuming, part of trying to get in and actually read, descriptions, which can sometimes be lengthy and very wordy, trying to hide certain things. And if you're really trying to be diligent about going through and pre-filtering books before they have to show up damaged, that can take a lot of time just in itself, just that single aspect. If you're copy and pasting in-house and you're doing hundreds of books, it's a very, very lengthy process. In addition to that, you're talking about missing items, damaged items coming in. So you make the order, you've taken the time, you really sat down and did the right process, and then the books don't show up. And you're a few days out from rush, the books haven't come in, and now you're having to worry about chasing down orders and getting refunds for that, as well as then probably having to go to the pub and getting a new price on that book to get it in on time. And lastly, I think another thing that has kind of, I would say, seen an ebb and flow go on is the counterfeit issue. There was a time several years back that it sort of seemed to be at the very high point. It was high tide of counterfeit era, and I think it was heavy in the marketplace. And in the following years after that, I felt like there was a really big crackdown on the market, by everybody in the industry to really eliminate that. And so I think that one thing that I hear from a lot of stores that are, just sourcing in-house, that's one thing that's always in the back of their mind, is not bringing in books that, at some point down the road could cause them any headache.
Right. And I would say that, time, it is time consuming to do these things. And a lot of stores that, choose to do it in-house, I think what happens is they get bogged down with a lot of other things going on, and they may get through a few titles, or they look specifically at maybe some old editions or something, and they don't actually get to source their list. I mean, it's the intention is there, but it just doesn't happen. And so that kind of brings me to our point, is like, why use HokuBook? Why use a sourcing solution rather than in-house? And so one of the big things, obviously one of the main things that people look at when they're using a sourcing solution, or when they're looking at sourcing in general, is the deeper discounts that you see through Marketplace in relation to that of a pub price or a traditional wholesale price. So yes, that's one of the main things. Obviously, you can get some much deeper discounts going through the marketplace. A biggie that we like to really push is that you're removing competing inventory from the marketplace. So every book that's not sourced on the marketplace is a book that's still there during rush, and that's your competition. So that's it's a for us it's one of the main reasons, but it's a great secondary thing that's occurring by using a sourcing solution.
And if I can add something to that, the way that the price of the textbooks, again, ride that roller coaster throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month. It's really effective to jump in one time and find a book at the price point that you want. But at the same time, the more times that you're able to check the price of that book or just check for that title, the more times you're going to find those hits. And so as we spoke about, taking away competing inventory, it's almost like that whack-a-mole game. Yes, you got on today, you ran your list, you found one book, you pulled that out, you removed that competing inventory. But that's not the end of the story, because maybe next hour or maybe the next day, there's another, new title that popped up. And in theory, you would like to be able to grab that book at that price and remove that competing inventory. But if you only looked once and bought one time, that enemy, the competitive inventory, is just replenishing, days afterwards. So it's, very beneficial to check multiple times in a sourcing season, for a title, so that you can make sure that you are, cashing in and grabbing those reserves as they pop up online.
Right. And doing that in-house is a daunting task, because, I would consider it successful if you could just make it through your entire want list one time on a single marketplace. Right. And that's not happening in most cases. And with a sourcing partner like us, with HokuBook, if you have your list in our system set up on, you can have it set up on a rework, and we'll kind of get into this a little bit later, but whether it's rework or not, it's sourced every single hour. So like you said, if you use a sourcing partner, that's something that is automated and is done consistently. So it's nonstop. So just because you have your want list in with us doesn't mean we hit it one time and it's done. It's constantly pulling that inventory off the marketplace. And again, we consolidate all of that inventory in-house. So one of the issues with doing it in-house is if you're doing it yourself in your stores, you're having to receive tons of packages coming in, making sure you're receiving the correct item, dealing with damaged items, having to return those things. So we consolidate it in-house and deal with all those nuances of marketplace sourcing. The inventory is labeled right out of the gate, and so when you receive a single shipment on a single invoice, you're getting shelf-ready inventory that's ready to be scanned at your POS. So a few extra, kind of pluses there. And then where stores run into using P cards or purchase cards when they're doing it themselves, that's also a daunting task, trying to reconcile all those transactions. So with us, you don't have to have a credit card. You can pay by PO. And then again, we want to touch on shortages. So, that's one thing when we talk to stores across the country, so through some of the various conferences we go to, we get asked, well, what's my shortage rate going to be? Because, they've used various other sourcing partners out there. And if you're doing it yourself or using some of these other partners, you can see upwards of a 10% shortage rate for items that are damaged, incorrect, or just never show up. And so we've built a automated reorder tool that allows our shortage rate to be reduced to, on average, 1% or less. So it's a great feature. So when you're ordering with HokuBook, what you see in your bin is what you're actually going to get.
And if I can, jump in there, Chris, I think I've heard numbers of in years at certain shows, of upwards of 10%. And occasionally, it's been said that, like that's just kind of a commonplace occurrence, like 10% shortage rate, kind of expected and have learned to deal with. But in my mind, if you have, taken the time and saved, put margin back on your side using the sourcing option, and you have a 10% shortage rate, let's say that is 2,000 books and you 10% short that, that's a lot of books that you're probably going out and having to go to the pub for then. And so
Right.
you're really eating all of that, margin back up to at the very end have to end up going to the pub. So, I would say that option that, we have built into that where we're looking for the reorder to really limit that shortage rate to, 1%, I would say that it's almost necessary to really put the final, bow on the whole entire sourcing option.
Right. And I really want to talk about a common misconception. And I know you've heard this, Anthony, but I think that there's stores that overlook sourcing and don't even consider it because they believe that they can't return any of those items, which is true when you're doing it yourself. But partnering with HokuBook, we actually give you returnability. You can return up to 10% of your bin, and you would, at the end of the term, and you actually would get a return authorization through us, just like you would with a traditional wholesaler, allowing you to select up to 10% of your inventory to send back. So it does reduce your risk on that front. One of the pluses is that there's no particular blacked out items or blacklisted items that you can't return, whether it's a custom edition, out of print, OE, old edition, you can return those regardless. So that's a big plus and a game changer. I feel like that's allowed a lot of stores that couldn't use a sourcing application just because they weren't allowed returns. Well, now you can. And again, I think, Anthony, and this is one thing I hear you harp on all the time, but the time savings that comes across from using a sourcing application.
Yep.
I hear you talk quite frequently. You want to touch on that a bit?
Sure. I mean, we've done a lot of, estimations just off of talking to stores and saying, well, how long would you say that, you spend when it comes to just, running the list, copy pasting, and then we break those down, and in my mind, you have the main areas of just the actual sourcing process, the searching for the books. Then you have the entire process of receiving those books, opening the mail, having all those packages come to the store, having to go through the entire, quality control process, which eats up a lot of manpower. And depending on your store, depending on how many hats you're wearing, which we usually hear is 5, 6, 7 hats on one head, to be able to give away 2 or 3 different people to a receiving process for a week, is a very expensive thing to do, and something that probably hurts other areas like the main floor when you have people in the back having to just simply open packages. And then lastly, whether it's your accounting department or whether it's you in there that is handling all of your POs and everything, again, just wearing another hat, those are the 3 main areas that just eat up a considerable chunk of time. And in this last year and a half, we've seen, just how precious our time is and how squeezed in it can get and how much that we can be asked of in such a short amount of time. And so, anywhere that a store, can capitalize on an easy button, if you will, something that costs the store $0 and provides savings of hundreds of hours of labor, I think that can't be understated. And I think that, some stores just take that as a process of sourcing and just buying books and the normal, routine year to year. And the reality is you don't have to go through Walmart anymore and, go grocery shopping for 2 hours a week. If you choose to hit the easy button, groceries get brought to your car when you pull up and wait for a minute. Mm-hmm. And so essentially, everybody in the world is looking, how can I grab more time and capture that and put it back in my pocket? And so, utilizing a sourcing partner like HokuBook does exactly that.
Right. And that kind of, I'd like to bring up the next point here is how do students perceive value? This is a biggie, especially when it comes to the college store, because we're always talking, especially when the whole RFP thing comes around, that everybody doesn't want to hear that term, but we like to point out to administration, the value we're providing not only to campus, to professors, to the different departments, but the value we're providing to the students. But I guess the main thing is we can tell, administration and the different places the value provided, but if we actually step back and look from the student's perspective, how are they perceiving that value? So when it comes to textbooks, students are out there browsing your website, or in your store looking at your shelves. They're going to be on their smartphones or on their laptops in another tab. They're going to be looking at how much is that book through, any of these various marketplaces that are out there. If your store's in the ballpark, or if you're using HokuBook, maybe even potentially lower than what's out there on the marketplace, then your students are going to think, wow, my store is well priced, and they'll continue to come back. I think what happens a lot of times is, your freshman, sophomore, they come into the store, well, then they start looking, and it only takes one time where, there's one book that they bought that's $30 cheaper online. And that one time prevents future purchases from happening. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring HokuBook into that process where we can help you easily pull that inventory off the marketplace, rising the prices online, so when rush hits, that your store's actually competitive or even better priced than what the marketplace is. So again, I'll point this out. Every single book that's not purchased on the marketplace is a book that's still there during rush and is your competition. So for me, that's the number one reason to use HokuBook, is to make your store more attractive to your students during rush. So I guess we'll kind of get into the nuts and bolts of this. Anthony, would you like to run through and kind of let stores know how HokuBook works? How would they work with us?
Sure. So it's a very simple process. You get on and you upload your want list through your customer portal. So once you get signed in and you get registered and you get your account information, you'll have your login info. You'll get in, you'll be able to upload the list at your convenience, because we know everybody's could be on a different coast. You could be having different hours, or you work in the evenings on sourcing and you do your other 5 jobs in the store during the day. So this really allows you at your convenience, when you have your list ready and sourcing comes to your brain, you can jump on at any time and upload that. You can also you basically have the managed purchase process, and it's automated.
Right.
Chris, you can touch into that a little bit in terms of not having a lot of little things to go in and be picking at when you upload.
Right. Yeah. So a lot of sourcing solutions that have been around over the years, they've been great in that they've allowed some sourcing to occur that didn't happen in the past. But what we've tried to do at HokuBook is simplify the whole process. So rather than you coming in and still sifting through marketplace listings, you're actually looking at all these individual descriptions that come through from the marketplace on these books and how many quantities out there, all these the price points, all that. So rather than you having to do all that, we fully manage that. It's fully operated on our end. So once you upload your want list, it goes and takes off from there. We manage that whole process, so you're not spending any more time other than the initial login and uploading of the want list. So a matter of a couple of minutes, you can get that in there and you're sourcing. You're not spending half a day or days out there trying to do this process. We make it very, very easy.
Mm-hmm. And so we take that, when the books start to come, we take that, and just like your traditional wholesale company or partner would, you have that inventory consolidated at our warehouse. We go through the entire quality control process, make sure that nothing comes to your store that you would not want there. It's consolidated. It's also pre-labeled, and so when it shows up to the store, it's one nice neat shipment with one invoice, and theoretically the books are ready if you choose to come out of the box, be scanned into the POS, and go right onto the shelf. So we've really taken that entire process and tried to mirror what most stores are already kind of comfortable and kind of are used to, and changed it where they are able to upload at any point that they want, and made the entire process a seamless application so that it's very easy for even the new user.
Right. And so just like when you're out there using a portal from a wholesaler, you can go out and select a ship date that you're desiring for your bin. Same thing with HokuBook. So the main difference between the two is where on one hand you've got wholesaler inventory that's being removed from a wholesaler's warehouse, where with HokuBook we're setting on top of multiple marketplaces that are out there, and you're removing inventory from hundreds, thousands of sellers and pulling that in. So it's a really neat process, and that's why we chose to consolidate that in-house, so you're not having to deal with all those individual packages. And again, we make it nice and neat and tidy, so you receive one shipment with one invoice, just like you would again with a traditional wholesaler. So let's actually get in and discuss some of the plan offerings we had. So we'll put that up on the screen for you so you can take a look at those. So again, I'll talk about the history of sourcing a little bit, but there's been some misconceptions with HokuBook anyway, because people are thinking sourcing, what's been going on in the past. And in the past, when you sourced, typically you've uploaded or put in your want list and you've selected or entered pre-desired maximum price points that you're willing to pay for an item, which in and of itself is a daunting task. It's a very time consuming. So we came up with a solution, again, that's the easy button. So we've got two plans that you can see here on the screen. We've got our dynamic plan and we've got our plus plan. Both offer the same discounts, the same returnability. The difference between the two lies in a default max price that's applied to every single item in the want list. So depending upon if you want to be a very aggressive sourcing store, we suggest using our dynamic plan, because the default max price point that's applied to every single item in the want list is 50% off list. So any item that's sourced through the dynamic plan, you wouldn't pay above 50% off list. And that doesn't mean that's what you're going to pay. That just means that's the maximum that we would source any inventory off the marketplace. So we put some controls at the plan level. And then if you look over here on the other side, the plus plan, it's a little more conservative, and the default max price point is 60% off list. And then again, we put you in the driver's seat if you'd like to be, and you can still set item level max prices on top of that to override those price points, because we realize, there's probably a handful of items in your store that you've heavily discounted because, they're a couple editions old, or, whatever the reason may be, and you don't want to source above a certain price. So we still give you that ability to do so. We've just made it easier in our plan offering, so you don't have to select particular max prices for each one, and there's still some control over that. So it's, you're not going to pay above a certain price. And so we hear stores say, well, what am I paying then? Is there a per item fee? No, there's absolutely no per item fees. There's no hidden cost. There's no cost to use our software. The only thing you pay for is the actual cost of the inventory. And we make it even simpler in our invoicing method, in that we average the price point out. So, if we're ordering 25 copies or sourcing 25 copies of a biology book, for instance, it's likely that there's 25 different price points across those units. So rather than you getting an invoice that has all those particular price points listed out, we consolidate that down and average that price point out for ease of receiving and ease for the accounting department. And so I guess let's throw up the slide and show some real numbers, because it can your eyes can kind of glaze over just kind of talking about what it can do. So let's actually look at a store example. So our friends over at the University of Alabama sourced with us this last spring term. You look on the left-hand side of the screen, and you can see that they sourced nearly 2,000 units through HokuBook. And here's the savings that they actually received through the platform. So you'll look there, and you can see that there was nearly a $17,000 savings from traditional wholesale pricing. And a biggie that I like to point out is that shortage rate that you see there. They actually saw less than 1% shortage rate on that entire bin. So that equated to about 15 units that were shorted overall. And then again, I really like to stress this is, you saw in the last slide there the pricing options or the max prices that are applied in each plan. Well, Alabama was on our dynamic plan. And so if you'll remember, the max price applied to every single item was 50% off list. So we like to point out, well, what did they pay on average? What would you pay on average? And every store is a little different depending on the product offerings you're providing, those particular books that you're using at your campus. But Alabama realized an average of 64% off list across their entire bin. And then again, returnability helps you bring that down even further. So at the end of the term, you still have that 10% return allowance that you're allowed to return back into us. Now, if you look at the right-hand side of the screen over here, this is where we like to point out that time savings that we talked about. So it is a labor-intensive process. So the total, we like to point out the total number of hours here that this would have taken to do in-house versus how much it actually took to do through HokuBook. And you'll see there that the time savings was approximately 163 hours on this about 2,000 unit source. So that's a significant time savings. One person, that's several weeks, 3-4 weeks there of labor. So yeah, that actually shows you some of the real numbers that you can take off and maybe show some, your director and say, hey, why don't we try sourcing this term? And we'd be glad to go further into that with you if that's something you'd like to talk about. So Anthony, how about you take off and let our listeners hear a little bit more about what the customer portal will allow you to do.
Sure. So, it feels like this was a long time coming, getting the customer portal. We always heard, the main wish list, and everybody wanted kind of a good amount of controllability, to get on and upload a want list, not have to be able to get with somebody on a phone or hope that the email, somebody is ready to receive the email and get going. So with the launch of the customer portal, you now can get in at your convenience, upload that want list. You can view active lists. We know we have several stores who are uber aggressive when it comes to sourcing, and they're sending want lists out to several different sourcing partners. And so to be able to check in and see what active lists you have with us in accordance with other sourcing partners kind of aligns that and makes it nice and clear for you. You are also able to go in and view your open bin, just taking a look at what Hoku has sourced and what has been put on the way to your bin. You are also able to go in and view orders that have been shipped. You're able to make sure that they have been shipped. Just kind of, we have certain stores that want to reach out and check in, just get that assurance, hey, we're set for a delivery of Thursday, and we just wanted to make sure that it was coming. And
right.
So now you're able just to jump on real quick and check for yourself.
Right.
And
the portal will let you do that.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm gonna kind of show you some more of what the dashboard offers in the portal here. So again, whether you're choosing to rework your list or it's just a one-time source, regardless, you can get in and see real-time results of what's being sourced. So you can look at your active orders, you can see those open bins, drill down further and see specific quantities that are within that bin, along with the actual unit pricing that you're receiving off the marketplace. So it's a huge game changer. Rather than you not knowing, throughout, say you're reworking for a week, some stores like to see, well, what have I got in the first couple of days? So maybe you are working a want list through a wholesaler at the same time. Well, if you're sourcing, you can jump into the portal and say, oh, I've already picked up 10 copies through HokuBook. I can go out and adjust my numbers with my wholesaler and continue to source throughout the week with them as well. Anthony, I guess we'll kind of change gears here a little bit, and you can talk about the ease of use in the customer portal.
Sure. I mean, it allows for the quick upload of the want list, and then as a part of your choices in setting up the parameters for that, you can set the rework, whether you want to leave that for 2 days or 2 weeks. We really don't put any restriction on that. We want to make sure that we fit in with what your store is trying to accomplish. In addition to that, you can also place an ASAP order where you reach out, you're placing that, and you're hoping to get results in about 6 hours. And so for my experience, from what I've seen and when I talk to stores, ASAP ordering is really good for a store who wants to do, maybe daily sourcing, or every few days they're taking a list, they're dropping it in, they're getting results back, and then they're adjusting numbers as they get more adoptions in, so that then they can kind of allow that, what we call bin and build. And so you're having that bin filling, you're not wasting time or missing valuable days while you're trying to get all the books in. You're actively sourcing. Like I said, you're getting the results, you're adjusting, and you're building that list out while binning books at the same time,
right?
So that you're able to capitalize on that pricing.
Right, and I'll clarify. So that ASAP order, what Anthony just mentioned is, so we've got those times reduced down to 6 hours. So what that means is you can come in, upload your want list, and within 6 hours, you'd actually receive an automated bin report that shows you the details of what's in there. So you'd get same day results rather than having to wait for, a day or 2 days or a longer period of time. So you can get those same day results. Now, Anthony, what have you heard, like with what we call the old guard or the wholesalers? How long have you been hearing that, stores say, well, the wholesaler says, or, we're supposed to put our list out there for X amount of days? What are you hearing that, what time frame are you hearing that a lot of stores are saying they have to do that for?
It definitely varies. I don't know if it matters who to get maybe a little bit better deal, where you can get it back a little quicker. But years ago, I would hear times of 6 weeks. You would leave your list for about 6 weeks. More recently, I've heard of, a 3-week process where the list at the very minimum had to go out for 3 weeks before it could come back. And so, that can potentially lead to an issue. I had one store manager explain that, she had a list out. She couldn't, do anything with any of the numbers on it, manipulate, pull titles off. She was just waiting literally for 3 weeks for the list to come back. And she already knew that there were books that were going to be on the way that she no longer needed, because she wasn't able to do anything with that list. It was kind of just set and then get, the results to come back in 3 weeks.
Right. And with us, at least when I'm out talking to stores, we always suggest do a rework, because, obviously the longer you can keep it, the more inventory you're going to pick up. But we found that sweet spot to be about a 2 to 3 day period. So if you can come in and if you're able to work it for a couple of days, that's great. I think that would benefit you the most. And we suggest doing that over a few times throughout your buying time, rather than just doing a one-time source and be done. We suggest do it 2 to 3 day work if you can, and do that multiple times, time permitting. I guess we'll go ahead and I'll show you. We'll pull up can you go ahead and put the slide up of the customer portal here? And this is the upload screen that you'll see here. So something you're probably very familiar with. There's nothing that that's like, whoa, what is that? There's a few methods to upload a want list. So we've got the option to come in here. And you'll see there's a single entry method. So that's literally coming in. I need to look for one particular title. I need 15 of it, type of thing. The volume entry is what we like to call our copy paste section. So say you've got a spreadsheet of your want list there, you can copy and paste that directly into this portion of the screen to allow you to quickly upload. And then the last option there is a file upload method. And again, whether you're using either one of these three options, you have the ability in each to set an item level max price point to override any particular pricing from your actual plan that you've chosen. And I guess that kind of completes out the customer portal section. Anthony, one thing that I heard just recently at the last conference I was at is just always a need to find a place for overstock inventory. Books that you're left with that aren't on any particular guides that are out there. So let our listeners know what we're offering now.
Sure. Yeah. So all the time when I'm making calls and just talking about sourcing to stores, usually at the very end of the call, they might ask, "Hey, do you guys also buy books?" So HokuBook Liquidate allows for same-day quotes. A store can send that list out, get a quote back the same day. We do free shipping. We provide the shipping labels as well as payment after 14 days. So we try and get a payment, quickly to you. We don't have you waiting for weeks or months for a check when you send out those books. And like I said, a lot of times I think it's very convenient to get that same day quote rather than having to wait a day or 2 days, to hear back on that. I also know that sometimes stores are sending out these lists, out to several different buyback opportunities. And so, just to quickly have something back from Hoku so that you can place that right alongside other competitors,
Right.
just makes it easy for you to make a quick choice.
Right. And again, we'll put this up on the screen, but you can send those quotes to bids@hokubook.com to get that same day quote. So, we hope that you found something of value here. We know that quite a few of you stores are actually, you're already partners with us. But we would like to extend the opportunity to any store that hasn't partnered with us to register for HokuBook. It's quick and easy. You can scan the QR code on the screen or visit HokuBook.com, and there's a registration link right there at the top of the screen. If you'd like to have a deeper dive into the HokuBook offerings, like to bring on some other partners in your store to hear more about us, that's something that we can definitely do. If you check out the comment section, we'll actually put up a link for a schedule to schedule a meeting with either myself or Anthony. And like I said, it can be a brief 15-20 minute little meeting, but we'd love to hear from you. And we thank you for tuning into this segment, and we hope to talk to you soon.